You know what I love? A good horror movie. I've been a big horror fan for years and years. And through those years, I've acquired a large collection of DVDs, VHS tapes, movies, what have you, of that particular genre. Horror is my second favorite genre. My first would be medieval fantasy sword and sorcery type films. But I'm a horror fan as well. So what I decided to do is dig out some horror movies and show them. And I was trying to think of a theme. I was going to pick out like maybe 10 of this or 10 of that or whatever. But when it all came down to it, I said, what the hell? So I'm going to show 66 horror movies that you may have never heard of, or more or less may have never seen. You may have heard of them. The idea to do this came from my wife and I we love to watch Netflix, and they put a lot of B-grade horror movies on Netflix, which I love. She won't watch them, but I like them. And this movie kept getting put in my face. You need to watch this. You need to watch this. And I've seen online where everyone rants and raves about the soundtrack and how great it is, and how much of the 80s John Carpenter synth feel. The movie seems like a throwback movie, so I convinced her to watch it, and we really dug it. The movie is called It Follows. If you're a fan of horror movies that are a little off-centered, check it out. I'm sure you'll love it. I enjoyed it enough that it made me want to go through my B-grade horror movies and show them. And also, spawning off that, years ago, I had a book called Fangoria Magazine's 101 Greatest Horror Movies You've Never Seen. And going along with that, I had that book, and I was actually had a checklist where I would check off each of these movies as I would either find them and purchase them or just watch them. And I accumulated well over half the movies on that list. I wish I had the book to show, but I believe one of my daughters ran off with it. They grew up following in their father's footsteps to love horror movies as well. And one of my daughters ended up with that book, and I think she's continuing to check off the list. But if I can find a snapshot of the cover on the interwebs, I'll post a picture so you'll see what the book is. Now, not all of these comes from that book. A lot of these I've just pulled because I thought, well, let's show some movies that if you're a horror buff, if you're a fan of the genre, and you've kind of been iffy about, you may have seen it to rent or what have you. And so I'm just going to throw out, I don't know if this is, I'm sure this is going to take place over a series of videos, because I don't know if I can cram 66 into one video. Especially the way I like to stop and get off topic. So I'm just going to go, and we'll see where we end up. I'm 4 minutes in already. What I'm not going to do is show trilogies, or I'm not going to show anything that, like, okay, Friday the 13th is a popular, popular franchise of films. And I'm not going to show any of those because you've seen one or two or all of the Friday the 13th films. And those aren't necessarily films you may have never seen before. But the films that I do show, if they did have movies that came prior to them, I'm not going to talk about those, I'm just going to talk about the one movie in particular. Example, Reanimator. You know, there's Bride of Reanimator and Beyond Reanimator, and then there's another one that I don't have, can't recall what it is, but let's just start with Reanimator. This is an H.P. Lovecraft inspired interpretation of one of his stories, and it's directed by now see, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to know half what I'm talking about. Is it Charles Band? Stuart Gordon. Okay. Stuart Gordon directed this. Anyway, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about these. I'm just going to show them and tell you, hey, if you haven't watched this, watch it. Reanimator. Dr. Herbert West. Reanimating dead things. Somewhat silly in places, somewhat comical in places, but really good B-grade horror movie if you have not seen it. Reanimator. And then this next one, it had a string off of it, but I'm just going to talk about the first one. And that movie is Ginger Snaps. You also had Ginger Snaps 2, and you had Ginger Snaps the beginning, and I believe there may have been a fourth one that followed that or was in the works at one time. Ginger Snaps came out in the year 2000, and it stars Emily Perkins, who has made a living off of these films, and she was also in the movie It when she was a younger girl, the original It, not the remake. And Mimi Rogers is in it as well. It's about a girl who, as she starts to become a woman, she gets bitten by a werewolf. There's not going to be any spoilers. I'm not going to tell you the endings of any of the movies I show. But, you know, werewolf, they smell blood. She's becoming a woman. Think about it. She gets attacked by a werewolf and slowly becomes one in the process. It's a really good friendship buddy story of two girls who were best friends and how this affects their lives, of one of them slowly becoming a werewolf. Don't let the name or the cover fool you. It's a really good movie. Next, these are in no particular order. I've just got a couple stacks here and I'm just showing them. This came out in 1977, I believe, and the film is Martin by George Romero. Romero, who's known mostly for the Dead franchise, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. This is his real-life vampire movie, as far as a teenage boy who drinks blood and believes himself to be a vampire by his own means, or what have you. Reviewers say it grabs the audience by the short hairs. It's an eerie, sardonic updating of the traditional vampire legend. Now, some of these movies that I'm going to show, if you do watch it, you'll be like, why did he show that? Why did he pick that movie? Well, it's because they've stood the test of time as being classic B-grade movies, and this is one, Martin. I believe they may have done a remake of this, but called it something else. I don't remember. Feel free to chime in below. From 1976, Shockwaves. 2 words. Nazi zombies. What else do you need to know? Stars Peter Cushing, though he's not in it tremendously long, and also John Carradine is in it. Really good. It's one of those midnight movies, you know, that you would don't expect to get too plot heavy in some of these. It's good for like snuggling up with your gal, eating some popcorn, and just chilling. This is the kind of movie that you can talk through if you want. and just wait for the little jump scares or, scary bits. Okay, this one came out in 2000. American Psycho. This may be one of the more mainstream films that I show. It's an early Christian Bale film. It also stars Willem Dafoe, Jared Leto, Josh Lucas, Chloe Sevigny, and Reese Witherspoon. I know that lineup alone, that's an A-star group of cast members. But I'll tell you, this is a very strange movie that I love. I quote this movie often to my friends that know my weird, twisted sense of humor. It's about a man who is a serial killer in the 80s. And, or is he a serial killer? It's hard to say. It's a psychological type movie. A lot of humor, a lot of great one-liners. American Psycho, definitely worth your time to check out. Another serial killer movie that's not funny came out in, what year? 1990 as well. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. This film is shot as if you're watching things transpire in real time. You don't feel like you're watching a movie. You kind of feel like you're watching a snuff film, but without so much sex, I guess. It stars Michael Rooker, who has made a huge comeback as of late in a lot of the movies he's been in. He's in Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Yeah, anything that what's his name puts out as of late. I'm locked up. I can't think of these directors' names. He's in just about every movie that James Gunn. Just about every movie that James Gunn comes out with, Michael Rooker has some type of cameo part in it. But yeah, this is a really good movie that... Okay, this is one of those movies, a lot of these. My wife is a very straight-laced individual. She's not a fan of horror movies, but she will watch them with me to humor me. If I tell her, hey, I think you'd like this, really, she's thinking, oh God, he wants me to watch something I'm going to hate. Well, this is one of those movies that when we watched together, when the movie went off, she looked at me, and first she said, why did you make me watch that? Second was, that movie scarred me for life. Because of its realness. The things that Henry does, the friendships he makes, the mindset of his actions as you follow his character through the film. Like I say, it's shot as if you're witnessing something that someone's recorded for real, but not in the Cloverfield, Blair Witch kind of shaky footage kind of stuff. You just really feel like you're watching something real go down with this. Next, a movie from 1988. Ken Russell's The Lair of the White Worm. I believe this movie was very popular overseas, but not so much in the United States. It stars Hugh Grant alongside Amanda Donohoe and Catherine Oxenberg. It's a very strange movie set in Scotland, I believe. It's been a while since I've seen it, or England. The central character returns to his countryside castle in England. Legend has it that his distant ancestor once slayed the local dragon, a monstrous white worm with a fondness for the sweet flesh of virgins. So there you go, in a nutshell. It's a strange film, but it's fun to watch. So, Lair of the White Worm. And let's do a twofer real quick, and then we'll probably wrap this video up, because I've still got a big stack, and I'm not even sure how many I've shown yet. Both these movies are going on the list. It's a two-on-one. The movies are Deranged and Motel Hell. Deranged came out in 1974. Motel Hell came out in 1980. Deranged is loosely based on the life of Ed Gein, which the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies were based off. Ed Gein, the real life serial killer. It's about a man named Ezra. He's kind of a country guy who everybody in town likes, but he's kind of a standoffish kind of guy. And after his mother dies, he digs her up and keeps her around and starts bringing women folk home and to keep his mother company. And as you can imagine, he does what Ed Gein does. The second movie is Motel Hell. Farmer Vincent, he's got a hotel, and they make the best meats around. And basically, what he's doing is, as locals or as visitors to the town check in, they don't check out. He plants them in the backyard, like heads of cabbage or lettuce. He buries them, leaves their head sticking out, and he keeps them alive long enough till it's time to cultivate them. So it's a fun movie. It's the most elegant hellishness ever filmed, according to Box Office. And it was written, well, Deranged was written by Alan Ormsby, who I believe he directed Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, which is another cult classic. And I think I'm going to stop the video here. This is part one. I'm not sure how many parts we're going to do, but I hope you enjoy these horror movies that I'm showing. I enjoy them, or else I wouldn't be talking about them. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in part two. Peace.